We have come to rely on the internet for just about everything, right? We can do anything from pay our bills to take classes, order food, but for very important life events like adoption, the reality is the internet isn't the safest place considering the threat of fraudsters. Here to share some tips on how to navigate it all, we have the executive director of the adoption consultancy, Nicole Witt. Good morning to you, Nicole. Thank you for being here.
Good morning. Thanks so much for having me.
Well, Nicole, I know we have so many children, especially in the area that we cover, that are waiting for a family to get them a loving home. If parents are considering the adoption process, do you suggest they avoid the internet altogether when they're trying to find a potential match with a birth mother?
You know, some people do choose to, and that's fine. You can adopt very successfully without using the internet and going through kind of some of the more traditional routes. But, you know, it can't hurt. Like you said, we all go to the internet first to research anything. So it can't necessarily hurt as a place to make initial contact. But I always tell my clients, as soon as that initial contact's made, as soon as there's interest from both parties for moving forward, it's really important to take the conversation offline and go through some more traditional kind of safer approaches.
Now, something that's very important for your agency is meeting with the expectant mom in person. Why is that such a priority for your adoption agency?
So I actually run a consultancy, not an agency,
Okay.
but I always counsel my clients that they do have an agency and or attorney who does meet with the expectant mom in person. Because again, if somebody is committing fraud, which, you know, is a very small percentage of people in adoption, but it does happen, it's much easier for them to hide behind a computer screen, right? Maybe they're not even pregnant, maybe they're not even a woman, right? So if they're going and meeting with the agencies and the attorneys in person, if they are going with them to their doctor's appointment, if they're being offered in-person counseling, that's just going to make the whole situation much safer for everyone involved.
Okay, and Nicole, let's say that someone has been online, they've formed this relationship with someone, and unfortunately they are a fraudster. Do you think that it's harder for them if they've already developed that relationship to see any red flags? Does that tend to maybe make them block that out a little bit more?
Absolutely, absolutely. Once they kind of have that connection, they're a little bit less likely to really hear, you know, what their team is telling them. So I always tell people it's, you know, not only is it really important to have a team of experienced professionals guiding you through the adoption process, you have to listen to what they're telling you. And I think once people do have kind of that bias of, well, I've already had a conversation with her, I don't think she would do that, or I'm not really concerned about this, they're not as likely to kind of hear those more objective opinions than if they were just hearing about that case for the first time, say from their agency. So that's definitely a bias that people should be cognizant of, you know, if they are connecting with somebody online. And it's not to discount their gut instinct. That can be very valuable too, but it's just one of many data points.
Now, as far as your team, you mentioned, I mean, it does take a team and it's not an easy process. So how do you go about advising hopeful parents to use the internet or social media when they are going through this process?
Yeah, so they should have that team set up ahead of time, whether that's a consultant, whether it's an agency or multiple agencies or an attorney or all of the above, kind of guiding them through the process. And they can work through those more traditional paths as well. And like I said, sometimes only those. You don't have to go online. But if they're comfortable with it and they want to do some outreach online to possibly connect with an expectant mom, you know, there are ways you can do that through online, you know, free groups, or there are ways you can do it through paid advertising, or you can set up a website and drive people there. So there are lots of different approaches for how to do it. Again, you just want to be really careful to be protecting yourself as much as possible.
Sure. And what are some of those common things, maybe those glaring red flags that might be sending out warnings to you when you're engaging with conversation with someone? If you've started that, what do you suggest that they need to be looking out for? Is this like a trust your gut thing, or are there signs that may be a little more obvious than others that it might be somebody trying to take advantage?
Yeah, there are definitely some signs to be aware of.
Okay.
If the expectant mom doesn't really seem interested in sort of interviewing the possible adoptive parents and really getting to know them before saying that she wants to move forward with them, that's a red flag, right? Like if she's jumping in right away. If she's very financially motivated, needs money right away, a lot of times you have some overseas fraudsters who are claiming that they need money to get back to the U.S. right away. Things like that are red flags. And then one that's not as obvious is if a possible expectant mom says that she's pregnant with twins, because adoptive parents are always so excited about that, and the fraudsters know that. So it doesn't mean that there aren't, very real twin situations that go through and are on the up and up, but that's something that should just kind of raise a red flag a little bit, that's worth a little bit more investigation to make sure it's a real case.
Nicole, all of this has been wonderful information, I think, for families who may be considering adopting. If someone is watching, maybe they're needing a little bit of help, or maybe they think, okay, I'd like to start down this path, but I'm just not sure how to even begin those conversations. Is there a place they could reach out to you?
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what we do, is we guide people step by step through the process. So the best way to contact us is through our website. It's theadoptionconsultancy.com.
Yes, when you open your heart up for that kind of a love, you can be a little bit more vulnerable in that situation. So as you said, it's just nice to have that team of people that can walk you through this process and help you through each and every step. Nicole, thank you so much for being with us this morning and sharing all of this.
No problem. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. Have a good morning. Thank you.
You too.